What is up, YouTube? It's your girl Caroline. Welcome back to Carolinebeth. This is my friend Jordan. We have a very special guest today. We're gonna try something a little bit different. So Jordan has a ton of nursing experience and I mean some.
A moderate level. It's okay.
And we're gonna kind of chat with him and figure out his experience from travel nursing and kind of what he would recommend. We're kind of gonna do this kind of interview style. If you guys like this style of video, let me know down below. Give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and let's get into it. So Jordan, do you want to kind of introduce yourself and talk to the peeps?
Absolutely. So I'm an ER nurse. I've been an ER nurse for about 7-8 years. So I have a moderate level. I wouldn't say I have a lot.
That's how we met. I actually precepted him, which was pretty funny because he had a lot more experience than I did, but it's fine.
You hadn't even been a nurse for a year.
No.
I don't think. Yeah, and she was assigned to train me for the, what was it, a month? 3 months, I think. We had to go through that. It was a very odd place to work. We won't mention what it was. But I think you taught me much more than either one of us expected. So it turned out pretty well. And but my background is all in ER. I've spent several years traveling, doing travel nursing, and worked in trauma, worked in community hospitals. So I've worked, I don't know, I've tried to work all around as much as I could.
He's a pretty well-rounded nurse, as we can see. So kind of tell me, how did you figure out that you wanted to travel nurse?
You know, it sounds bad, and I can't speak for everybody, but I know that there is a percentage of people out there who feel this way, but I did it for the money.
Fair.
As it's, you know, we're not paid what we're worth. And
yeah,
so
especially in the state of Tennessee, which we've talked about in other videos.
Yeah, and that's a lot of middle America.
Yeah.
We're not getting paid close to anything that the coasts are, but also what I think we're worth, and I think that's a common opinion. The other thing was the flexibility.
Okay.
It offers a lifestyle that even if you're, a lot of single people do it, but even if you're married, a lot of people I've met on the road as other travel nurses have managed to make that work. And so it's not just for, I'm young, I'm 22, I'm single, I'm gonna go on the road.
I want to make a bunch of money.
Yeah, a lot of people can do it, and they all have different goals. And so it really depends on, can you make it work for you in your life and what you're looking for.
Now, speaking of kind of the personal side of things, what did you find that was the biggest benefit as well as bad thing about travel nursing from a personal perspective? Because I know a lot of people, like, yeah, the money's awesome, but you're by yourself a lot. So how did you struggle with that? What were the benefits? That kind of stuff. Yeah,
work-wise, it's you're on your own, and that's something that you'll hear a lot if you're interested in it and you've started to look into travel nursing. You get all the shit assignments. They typically don't support you. It really depends on the culture of the hospital. There's some hospitals I could name that are absolutely terrible, and the people there were terrible. Others where they accepted people right in, and they worked with you as if you were regular staff. Most of them fall in between, just like most things. There was the middle ground there. The best things were typically afterwards. I just suffered through it, and it was it's real. It's
okay. Really, I mean, that's fair.
I'm gonna be honest. It was, you know, you're working and you're working hard, and most places, unless you go to California where they've got ratios where you do a little better, but no, it's hardly anywhere. But even then, it not only softens a little bit of what you're gonna get, but you will typically get, let's say there's one open bed.
Like bed in the hospital.
Yes.
Okay.
In the ER, it'll never be yours. Like you will be full. You'll have a full assignment your whole shift. If there's one patient in the ER at a time, and as soon as that patient leaves, a new patient comes in, and you only ever have one, you're getting that patient.
Why do you think that is?
You're an outsider.
Yeah.
Again,
you're not part of the team.
You're not part of the team. You're not part of the home. Yeah. I don't think anybody's being malicious. Per se, although I've experienced that as well. It's more of, they don't know you, and there are some things you can do to try and soften that on your own. Coming in and being helpful and being a part of a team, even if they don't have that culture, and coming in and getting to know people and just being friendly.
But anyway, back to kind of the travel thing.
Yeah.
What is one piece of advice, like when you were a nurse, what do you wish somebody would have told you about travel nursing?
So before I started?
Yeah.
That's tough. There are several aspects to the travel nursing that you have to keep in mind. There's finding housing.
Okay.
There's negotiating salaries. There's working and integrating yourself in the culture, kind of what we mentioned earlier.
Okay.
And a lot of those, there's a lot of good Facebook groups, or at least they used to be really good.
Yeah.
They've kind of become inundated with ads from travel companies now. They're not as good as they used to be.
Okay.
And before I got in it, that's how I got a lot of my experience, was talking to travel nurses at the hospital that I was at.
Okay.
And asking them,
What do you do?
What do you do? How do you negotiate a salary?
Yeah.
What is a good salary? And the other thing is, I looked at a lot of the job boards on the Facebook groups, and probably for about a year and a half before I actually took an assignment to figure out what going rates were. And I picked out a few places that I knew I wanted to start at.
Okay.
And I trended those, and I just kept track of them.
As far as location or hospital?
Location, not
Okay.
specific hospital,
Okay.
but I picked out, let's say, LA, San Francisco, and I don't know, New York City, just to name big cities.
Okay.
That's not what I picked out, but to pick those out, and I trended those salaries and what people were offering, so that I wouldn't get lowballed. A lot of what's happening now, to be honest, about travel nursing, is not as good as it used to be.
Yeah.
And one of the things is that the rates they're going down, and they're becoming closer and closer and closer what you get as a salaried nurse.
Okay.
And so you're doing it more for the lifestyle of being free, not as much for the pay anymore. Where there was a time where we were making, on a regular contract, not even a high level contract, you'd make six figures if you worked.
So is that
just 10 months out of the year, and not even working a full year. You could have a month off in between 2 6-month contracts, or 3, and break them up and do really well. Where now you're lucky, and everybody's fighting over those high paying contracts. So it's not the same.
What do you think is a good way to set yourself apart when you're trying to go for like one of those big guy contracts, or really just, if you want to go somewhere where a lot of other people want to go? Like, what would you recommend to them to be like, this is something you should expand upon with yourself, as far as talk about like your experience, or should you talk more about your personality? Like, what do you think helps set you personally apart from other travel nurses?
Yeah, there's a lot of basics that you have to travel.
Okay.
And I mean, that's just to work, like your ACLS, your BLS.
Yeah.
Your PALS isn't always required, but I have it anyway, and that helped a lot.
Being in the ER.
But CEN, TNCC, that stuff really pushed it farther. Now, like I said, even PALS isn't always required. If they don't think, if you're in a smaller community hospital, they don't think you're going to see a lot of kids, they might not push that, which is weird.
Yeah.
But I've seen that. But again, being in the ER, you're going to have most of those things.
So just more certifications in your specialty,
Absolutely.
whether it be cardiac, ER,
Absolutely.
ICU, med-surg. So, and obviously getting certified in your area of nursing is really recommended and really best practice at this point, right?
Yeah, they're pushing them more anyway, and you're going to see it less and less to where you don't have those listed as mandatory. The CEN is almost ubiquitous.
Yeah.
But the TNCC, when I started, the TNCC probably helped me more than anything.
And that's the trauma nursing core?
Yeah. So, I mean, I walked into trauma hospitals where they just said, oh, you have your TNCC. Well, only a half a dozen of us had that, where that wasn't really a big thing then. But now it's becoming more of, well, you have to have this. And not only do you have to have that, but you have to be trained in our way of doing it.
Yes.
And so the culture's really different. Finding out how the culture is in the hospital, what they do and don't allow travelers to do. I've been in a lot of hospitals where, even though I had all those certifications, it was their policy not to let travelers take care of trauma patients or take care of stroke patients.
Just because that wasn't, they didn't know how you were trained.
Yeah, it was more of a liability.
Okay.
That's how a hospital always looks at it. Is how can I protect myself from my employees? I mean, that's any organization. So it's really just depends on where you're going and what you happen to find there, and you might not always know that.
So can you kind of walk us through kind of the interview and onboarding process? So you've decided you want to travel nurse, you figured out, okay, there's a couple places I want to go.
Yeah.
Where do you go from there?
So getting with a travel company.
Okay.
And again,
do you have any that you recommend?
everybody has their own opinion. Everybody has their own opinion.
Okay.
You're going to find just as many people who will shit on a company as will say, fair. Should I do that with the language edit? Okay.
No, we're allowed.
Oh, absolutely. You can just edit it in post. You'll find just as many people that will shit on a company as will say, oh no, they're my favorite people, I'd marry them if I could. It's really just hit or miss, and who you are as a person, because everybody's personality is different.
Yeah.
I've found plenty, and then the recruiter that you get.
Okay, so you will get a recruiter.
Yes. So when you sign up for a company, you'll get a recruiter, and they take care of almost all that stuff for you. You really just have to do a whole lot of stuff of giving them your information. Okay. And everybody's going to say the same thing with companies, though, is that you have to have more than one. Some people say you need 5. Some people carry more than that. I think that's a lot. And most people would say have more than 5 is a lot. I keep up with 3
agencies.
Specific agencies, so that you have options. For instance, the last contract that I tried to take, one company lowballed me $400 for the going rate. The going rate in that area was about $1,700.
Okay.
And they were offering me something around $13.
Okay. For how long of a period?
Most contracts are about 15 weeks, so you're looking around 3-4 months for this is standard. Very few are doing 8 anymore, and very few are doing longer than that.
Okay. Good to know.
So yeah, always look at your options. Always ask somebody else, and if you can, go to those message boards, and maybe we can put those in the link as well.
I'll link some, and all the stuff is always in the description box.
Yes.
Y'all always expand that description box.
Yes.
It's a very good place.
And those resources are really great. Most nurses aren't eating their young. Most of us are really good at being a community and reaching out. And that's how I figured out that I was getting lowballed. Was I asked, I said, I got this offer. What is anybody here in this area or even at that hospital working there? And they said, absolutely not. We're making more than that. And so then I checked with other companies, and I got rates that were appropriate for that level, which is, $1,700 is not a week isn't that high. But again, everything's trending downwards. But one of the reasons it's trending downwards is because people don't know and they don't have this information. So they're accepting those lower salaries, and hospitals themselves are starting to restrict that money, and then the companies are taking larger parts of it as well. So it's just trying to figure out that information. The more information you can have, the better you're going to be at negotiating for yourself.
Yeah, because nobody's going to look out for you but you.
Only you. Only you.
So talk us through some of the perks of travel nursing as far as like housing allowance, transportation, kind of what does that look like? Obviously it's going to depend on the contract, I would assume.
Yeah, a couple places I've gone when they were in the middle of a big city. Yeah. Not necessarily inner city, but close enough that I've flown out there and not taken a car. And I Ubered or used public transport around, but they were cities I was more familiar with. Like typically when I go out to LA, I know I don't have to take a car. If you have family or friends in an area, that helps. God, you asked about the benefits, and I've got to say that for me, really, I do it still for the lifestyle. I haven't worked since February, and I love doing that. And that has a little bit of a downside because people will look at my resume and be like, "Well, what the hell have you been doing?" Yeah. But when I phrase it to them, I say, "Yes, it's great." if you could make a year's salary in 6 months, would you do it?
Yeah.
But I meet plenty of people who say, absolutely not, I'm getting all that cash.
Yeah, but you've also traveled a lot too while you were travel nursing. You used that to explore.
Absolutely. So I turned that around, and I'll go and take vacations for a long time too. And I went and motorcycled it through the Alps and through the French countryside.
He's a cool dude.
I spent a month in Japan. I went to Hawaii and motorcycled around. Yeah. There's a lot of things you can do. If you want options, that's one of the ways to do it. You just have to make sure that you are okay with industry-wise, any industry, they want to see that you have a solid resume and you want commitment. And so the times that I've turned around to take and to get more experience by taking perm jobs, that has been a little harder. Yeah. Because I don't have that, hey, I'm going to be here for the rest of my life on my resume.
Or I've been here for 5 years and
Exactly. When you've got 7 different jobs in the past 2 years and you weren't even working full time at them,
you're hopping.
You have to explain that. It's like, well, this is what I'm doing. And they'll ask in interviews, well, how do we know you're not going to up and leave for your next big adventure in 6 months? And so that is a drawback. But again, you have to weigh your options for what you want to do and what you're looking for. And for me, I'm willing to take that negative and that downside to have that positive of traveling and not working all the time and turning that money around to do my best life, as you phrase it.
Living my best life.
You do that better than I do.
So also, I want to ask, how long had you been a nurse when you decided to travel? And did you not turn your phone on silent? Did you all hear that? He had one job.
I didn't hear anything.
One job. Nope. It just dinged. One job. Anyway.
All right.
Hold please. This is totally going on.
And we're back. Commercial break's over?
It's fine.
Okay.
But well, I'm getting the red. I'm getting the red.
man.
I'm getting the red mark that my battery's almost dead.
We're gonna come back in 5.
Get what biggest advice you have to anybody that's wanting to travel?
You have to be, you know who you are. You have to know who you are. You have to be self-sufficient. You have to know your craft. You are typically, even if it's a good place and you have people supporting you, it's not the same as when you are staffed somewhere.
Yeah.
And so you have to have the mindset of, I've got to do this 12 hours on my own. I have to do this 3 months on my own.
Okay.
But also know that your skills are strong enough to be able to do everything you need to do by yourself without any help. And that was something that I knew about 4 to 6 months before I left for my first assignment. And I knew before I even signed up or anything, and I knew, all right, this is what I'm going to go towards. I started weaning myself off, where I'd ask my techs for nothing, I asked other nurses for nothing, unless it got to an issue of, I've got to get this antibiotic in a certain time, I got to ask somebody, or I was getting really behind. I would ask no one for anything, so that I got myself into not just the mindset of resiliency, but I worked to that. Yes, I can do this on my own. And even when I've taken jobs where they've been helpful, which again is most places, most people aren't shitty. It still helped me to be a better nurse, to know that, okay, I
could do this if I had to.
Yes, I can roll this 600-pound patient over by, you really have to force things a little bit, but going to the gym helps, you don't have to be...
Healthy living, peeps.
Yes, that is best.
Yes. All right, well, thank you for joining me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Cool. All right, guys, if you guys have any questions for Jordan, leave them down below. I'll make sure that he can go back and forth. We'll link everything. Again, subscribe. It's Carolinebeth. This is Jordan. I'll link all of his social media on there so you guys can go be friends. All right, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.